Hey guys, Eamonn here, back with another rugby video. We're going to be checking out a video about New Zealand and why they're so good at rugby. We did a similar video a while back that just it might have been blocked by YouTube, so I wasn't able to post it, but it was just talking about how culturally significant rugby is, and it kind of just it's just a part of the culture. Everyone grows up playing it, and it's it brings everyone together, and it's just a part of the thing. And I remember comparing it to hockey in Canada, where it's just, you grow up with it. It's everything to a lot of people. We'll hop into this and see if there's some stuff I learned, some extra cool info, and we got Rose. I moved over here. She's in our videos sometimes. It looks like she's having a good nap right now, but yeah, she usually leaves once I start talking too much, so we'll see if she sticks around for that. And thanks a ton. We just hit 1,000 subscribers, which is wild. So it's crazy. And if you aren't subbed, make sure to sub. Now I guess we're trying to go for the next milestone. I don't even know what the next one would be, but I guess 2,000. Let's try to go 2,000. That'd be crazy if we can do another 2,000. Yeah, let's just hop in the video. All right, this is why tiny New Zealand dominates rugby and Spice Search Party. Make sure to sub to them. And like the video.
In September 2023, these 20 countries will participate in the biggest tournament of one of the world's most popular sports.
This is like a year and a bit old then.
And you could make a strong argument that one of these 5 teams will win it. England invented the sport and has reached the World Cup finals 4 times. South Africa won the last World Cup in 2019. Ireland is currently ranked number 1 in the world, and France is hosting the tournament.
Ireland's ranked number 1.
Then there's New Zealand,
interesting.
who might win because, they're the most dominant
at the time
team
of
in the
this
history
video
of rugby, and arguably in all of sports history.
And the All Blacks are the world champions for the second time.
Since 1903, the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team has only lost to 7 countries, but has a comfortable winning record against all of them. That's all the more impressive when you take into account that New Zealand today only has a population of 5 million people, a fraction of the other countries that have made a World Cup final.
Very unique, obviously, for us to dominate the world because we are a very small part of it.
There is a fervent following of this team, almost religious at times.
So it begs the question, how did such a tiny country create such a...
Yeah, in the other video I watched, they talked about how it's kind of like a religion in New Zealand, and that's in hockey. It's a phrase we use. It's like hockey is a religion.
Dominant sports team. And can the New Zealand All Blacks stay on top?
Nice. This is a cool video so far. Nice little intro. The Invincibles.
Rugby combines the less placid features of American football and English soccer. You can run, pass, or kick the ball, while at the same time protecting yourself from the combined assault of the enemy.
Rugby is a fast, violent, and chaotic sport with many rules, but one basic premise: get the ball to your opponent's end of the field. The modern form of the game was invented at a school in Rugby, England, around 1820. At the time, England had a world-spanning empire, and it introduced rugby to its colonies, like South Africa and Australia in the 1860s, then New Zealand in the 1870s, where it became especially popular.
When rugby came to New Zealand, it came from origins in the UK, where it was very much related to class structure. The elite schools played rugby in the UK.
Tony Johnson is a rugby expert, author, and TV broadcaster in New Zealand.
Welcome back, and Caleb Collins.
When it came to New Zealand, it really was the game for everyone. It didn't matter where you came from, what school you went to, you had a go at this game.
That included New Zealand's indigenous population, the Maori. They formed rugby teams almost immediately, and as early as the 1880s, a mostly Maori rugby team called the Natives played matches in other countries.
It was indeed a Maori person, Tom Ellison, who first came up with the idea of New Zealand wearing this black jersey.
Those jerseys are how New Zealand's national team came to be known as the All Blacks. And in 1905, they set off across the ocean to play matches, which, when played between countries, are called tests. The All Blacks surprised everyone by playing a faster, more expansive, and far more organized style of rugby than had ever been seen before. They played 35 tests, and they only lost once. A success that not only changed rugby, but also how the world saw New Zealand.
New Zealand was starting to search for its own identity. This was the start of it. This was New Zealand. Not so much a British subject anymore, but our own people.
After the tour, the All Blacks embodied that new national identity by fusing rugby with New Zealand culture, most famously by performing a Maori war dance called the haka before every test.
I think initially
So they've been
the
doing that
haka
forever.
was a greeting, also a challenge, often performed before a battle. Some people feel that the haka gives the All Blacks an unfair advantage. It's psychological.
In 1924, this All Blacks team won all 32 tests on an overseas tour, earning them the nickname the Invincibles. They raised New Zealand's expectations for the All Blacks from simply winning to dominating world rugby.
The superlative All Blacks rugby machine. They once more confirmed their absolute supremacy. World champion. The New Zealand War Machine, all set to join the other nations who've fallen before the invincible All Blacks.
According to data gathered by ESPN, between 1900 and 1989, the All Blacks won 71% of their tests. In 1987, they won the first ever Rugby World Cup. Then from 1990 to 2009, the All Blacks achieved a staggering 80% win rate. When they did lose, they always turned things around by developing new strategies.
You know, we're not the biggest people in the world. The South Africans produced these giants. England, a very sort of gym-trained muscularity about them. But what we do have is a combination of athleticism, skill, but also be willing to try something just a little bit out of the ordinary.
More than 100 years after it started playing rugby, this small country of a few million people was still producing the best rugby players in the world, year after year. So how does New Zealand do it? To make this video, we needed to do a ton of research. NordVPN a try. Thanks again, and now it's time to get back to the video.
It's the fact that it is our national game, so kids are playing it from when they're small, boys and girls.
Alice Soper is a rugby player and journalist.
You can be 6, so like 5 or 6, and they play something called Ripper Rugby, which is like a primer to the tackle where they have flags on their shorts.
Ripper Rugby teaches kids how to run, pass, and catch, and it's how New Zealand maximizes the number of people who try rugby, thereby maximizing the pool of talent, entering a pipeline that feeds the All Blacks. By the time kids turn 13, they're playing tackle rugby and join club and school teams. Many high school...
Yeah, in Canada, this is becoming an issue with hockey. Hockey's so expensive. There's less and less kids playing it, so the pipeline is like drying up a bit. It's still obviously like the number one sport, the number one country for hockey, but it's slowing down, and other countries are catching up for sure.
Schools called colleges in New Zealand field multiple teams, again, to keep as many playing as possible. But the best boys play on their school's top team, where the best of the best are increasingly identified as potential future All Blacks.
You could almost liken it to college sport in the United States.
You're watching Land Rover First 15 Rugby, where we show you the stars of tomorrow today.
Yeah. Oh, wow, they have like a whole TV broadcast. Oh, they have the whole school?
Then after graduating,
That's awesome.
the best are hired by teams to play in New Zealand's professional rugby league, Super Rugby. Only professional players that play in New Zealand are eligible to reach the top level, the All Blacks. It's a way for the team to ensure that there is a constant stream of new players that learn the game the New Zealand way.
They have to be all things, so they've got to be able to kick, they've got to be able to run.
Wait, let me repeat that.
It's a way for the team to ensure that there is a constant are eligible to reach professional rugby league, Super Rugby. Only professional players that play in New Zealand are eligible.
So they can't play. That's interesting. They don't allow players, like New Zealand players can't go play in the higher paying rugby leagues, or else they'll forfeit their like All Blacks eligibility. Do other teams do that, or is that seems like it's pretty like restrictive on the player? Like, yeah, I'd assume the other leagues would be paying a lot more, but I guess, yeah, you got to weigh like what's more important to you. I guess the getting paid more or like representing your country. And does the All Black team get paid as well? Maybe they do get paid. Yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard of that as a rule in another sport before. Having to play in the league. But yeah, that's good though. I guess that would make your team better if all the players are all in one area.
To reach the top level, the All
Not
Blacks.
spread out.
It's a way for the team to ensure that there is a constant stream of new players that learn the game the New Zealand way.
They have to be all things, so they've got to be able to kick, they've got to be able to...
Sorry, pausing again. But yeah, no, because I know like the Springboks have, I think it's Colby and is it Faf de Klerk that went? I know a couple of guys in the Springboks play in Japan, and then one plays in the France. Khaleesi plays in the France one. Is it France 15? I think France top 15, something like that. I forget the name exactly. I think they play in different leagues, so that's
To run, they've got to be able to tackle.
There's an expectation that they will play rugby the way the New Zealand public expect to see them play, which is this rather flamboyant style.
nice.
Possibly the greatest generation of All Blacks ever played from about 2010 to 2016.
Wow.
Over that time span, they won 90% of their tests and never lost at home.
Jeez.
Plus, they won 2 more World Cup championships.
Oh, yeah.
Several players on the 2015 team played at the same schools, and they all played for one of 5 Super Rugby teams.
Probably the most well-known would be Richie McCaw. He was your typical kind of hard man. Absolutely no fear going into the contact.
Daniel Carter, for example, who was like the Joe Montana of the All Blacks.
Yeah. I think them being so dominant in 2010 to 2016, that's probably why they were like the only one I'd really heard of. Like I hadn't heard of the Springboks like at all. I'd never even heard the name until you guys mentioned them in the comments in my All Blacks video. I think it must be because of they were just so dominant for that span that's like, and I guess that was I just heard about them from like just consuming sports in general.
He was a brilliant player, but he was a great strategist as well.
But while the top of the pipeline gets all the glory, New Zealand's real advantage over its much bigger rivals is at the bottom.
Other countries may have a similar kind of narrow trajectory through your schoolboys into your academies. They just don't have as many people funneling in at that beginning point.
It's quite a rugged sort of a game that suited the early pioneers of New Zealand, and these days it provides opportunity now for young people coming out of perhaps some of the more difficult socio-economic areas of New Zealand.
So the All Blacks dominate rugby because New Zealand transformed it into a game for everyone. But whether or not their domination continues is up for debate.
Huge World Cup upset. These men are too good for the All Blacks.
In 2019, the All Blacks failed to make the World Cup finals. Then in 21 and 22, they lost a stretch of 6 out of 8 tests, which pushed them to an all-time low ranking of 5th in the world. It led some to speculate that the All Blacks were in decline and question whether they could continue to dominate world rugby. Blame was placed on the COVID pandemic and the All Blacks coach Ian Foster. Most importantly, though, the losses forced New Zealanders to reflect on how their country's relationship with rugby is changing. A 2018 report found that the number of high school boys playing rugby was falling, while other sports were on the rise.
New Zealand has had phenomenal success in sports like rowing, basketball, but they've taken away athletes who once upon a time would have been All Blacks.
Like a lot of kind of male prevalent sports, they then start to take on that identity of like real heavily masculine spaces, which isn't necessarily what people want to be around. It's become out of step with younger New Zealanders.
And many worry that high school rugby is increasingly dominated by a few privileged schools that are making the game too professional at the expense of the rest. A 2013 investigation found that 5 schools in Auckland are estimated to have spent $400,000 on their rugby teams, while their competitors spent only $50,000. Over the next 5 years, the number of Auckland high school rugby teams fell from 225 to 181.
It's become very elitist, the schools really focusing on the elite teams. What happens to all the players who aren't good enough to play for the first team?
Just a lot of pressure when you're 15. So we're starting to see people realize,
this is what's happening in Canada too with hockey for sure. Very comparable there.
This isn't working out here. We need to be changing things.
The most immediate challenge keeping the All Blacks from total domination, though, is the rest of the world. Their rivals are getting better, particularly France and Ireland. Additionally, professional rugby leagues in Europe and Asia are getting very popular, and they're attracting a lot of New Zealand's players, making them ineligible to play for the All Blacks.
And even the lure of that black jersey for some players simply isn't enough when they think they can set themselves up for life.
In England, you've got a couple of Kiwis that are over there. If you look at the European teams, same thing there.
Yeah, that's definitely... that's what I was thinking, because like if they're not getting paid enough, like when you're a professional sports player, like you only have a certain window of opportunity to make money. So you gotta, like, as much as it would suck to not be able to represent your country, like you gotta earn your money and earn your living. It's like when you can. So yeah, that's interesting.
Japan, currently run by a New Zealander. We put our people everywhere, and then we're surprised when they start to know our tricks.
So while the loss of these players may hurt the All Blacks' ability to win tests, it does ensure that New Zealanders will continue to remain at the cutting edge of rugby well into the future. Now, even though the popularity of boys rugby may be falling in New Zealand, the popularity of women's rugby there is exploding, and the women's All Blacks team is number 2 in the world. Thanks again for watching episode 3. This was a fun one to do.
Yeah, that was a cool video. Yeah, is very, very similar to. I think it's this when I did the last video I did about this type of thing. But yeah, it's similar to shoot a hockey right now, where it's just like the barrier to entry, and like they're not the investment until like everyone isn't there compared to before. So it's like become kind of like an elitist sport and all that type of stuff. It's just like not. Yeah, it's not as fun, I guess, growing up playing it. Like it's just too serious and stuff, and the money, yeah, it's just not. Yeah. But no, that's cool. The women's rugby though is like booming, which that's cool. I'm still been meaning to check out women's rugby. I haven't done so yet, but I'm going to at some point. Yeah, I'd be curious to see how, like, is there tackling in that, or is it probably right? Unless they do flag, but no, I'd assume they do tackling still. I feel like you couldn't play rugby without there being tackling. Yeah. I know, like for women's hockey, for most of the time, they're like body checking and stuff was technically illegal. There still was some, but it was like illegal. But there's a new pro league for women's hockey now, and there's like actual hitting, which is kind of crazy, but it's really cool to see. No, but yeah, no, interesting video. Has there been any discussion about allowing players to play in other places while still playing for the All Blacks? Because that would be, like, I feel like that, like, it's a cool rule, but it also at the same time, yeah, like, I feel like at some point there's going to be, like, what if the best player on the All Blacks decides to go make money and he's just not on the team anymore? Like, are they just going to not let him play? Because that's yeah. They either would do that, or they'd have to, like, pay the players in is it the Super League in New Zealand? Is that what it was? I think it was. Yeah, like would they pay the players more there maybe to try to get them to stay? But it's, yeah, like rugby or New Zealand's not that big though, so it might be hard to, like, yeah, there probably isn't enough money to, like, keep the players there without, like, yeah, obviously you can't just, like, pay guys unlimited funds without, you'd have to, yeah, it'd be crazy. But yeah, no, yeah, I guess I'm gonna start doing more All Black stuff, because I know I kind of went with Springboks for a while, because one, I knew a lot less about them, and two, like, people were just going crazy for them. So yeah, but no, I'm gonna make sure to do more, because yeah, I might maybe I'll check out one about, like, the golden era, I guess, the 2010 2016 era, when they were just winning everything, because that's pretty wild, having a 90% win rate. Like, that's absolutely wild. Yeah, maybe give me some suggestions. Maybe if you know any videos that are good specifically, let me know, because it's always easier to just pick a video that, like, people want to see, rather than me just kind of looking one up. And yeah, some players. I've done a couple All Blacks players, but let me know who else I should do, because we'll send it there. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.